Welcome to another episode of the Preparing for Pregnancy After Loss podcast. I am your host, Natalie Facey, and today's episode is a little different from the others because it's actually a recording of one of the live Facebook Birth Warrior Wednesdays within the Birth Warrior community. The topic addresses a question that I received from a few of our birth warriors, which is how do you know when it's time to try again? I felt that it was such an important question to speak to that I decided to share it outside of the community. So you really get a little sneak peek of what some of the gems are that the members in the Birth Warrior Tribe on Facebook have access to. So without further ado, here's this week's episode on how to know when it's time to try again. So the topic today is one that I get asked a lot, and it's how you know when you are ready to try again. So I'm really excited to share it. So again, welcome to another Birth Warrior Wednesdays. This happens every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Yes, Birth Warriors family. This happens every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is also happening over Zoom because I know that there are people who are not on Facebook because the environment can be triggering for them. Again, the topic for today is how to know when you're ready to try again. Whether you're on the fertility journey or you have experienced infant loss or pregnancy loss, wherever you are on the birth warrior journey, this is going to be helpful for you because it is an important question, how to know when it's time to try again. From a like physical or medical perspective, that's something that your doctor can support you on. So what's happening in your body from a medical standpoint, wherever you might need support. So what I'm offering isn't going to be medical advice. It's going to be advice more from the mental and emotional perspective. And the other reason why it's important is that what's happening on the mental and emotional level, or in the mental and emotional body, affects what's happening in our physical body. You might have had the experience, whatever number of losses that you've had before, whether through infertility or, pregnancy or infant loss. You might have asked, doctors and specialists for some sort of understanding of what's happening in your body, and they aren't able to give you that answer. And a reason for that is most of the conventional doctors, how they're trained is in, whatever has manifested physically in the body. So whatever is happening physically in the body, they are trained to treat that. And it's often through either removing something or inhibiting something. But they aren't trained to go deeper into what's happening on a mental or emotional level that is affecting the physical imbalance that's showing up. And so even while you're working with a medical professional, it's really important to dig deeper under the surface and understand what's happening in your emotional and mental body. What's happening in your emotions, what's happening in your mind, in your thoughts, in your nervous system, because all of those things are linked. Or human body, it is an entire system with all of these things connected. And so we cannot treat just what's happening on the physical level without, turning the attention on what's happening on the emotional and mental level. So that really is my specialty, to share more. Yes, mental and emotional feelings can block perception. That's absolutely right. To share more about my background, I've been a coach for 5 years. My interest has always been supporting people in being happier with the lives that they're having and supporting them to heal from any emotional stuff that they're going through. So if you've heard of a woman named Louise Hay, they call her like the queen of positive thinking, or the queen of manifestation. I was trained in her philosophy as a coach and was really drawn to her work. And Louise Hay, she has since transitioned, but she has done a lot of work into the mind body connection. She wrote an entire book where, based on the people that she's worked with, she could see links between the challenges that they were going through that she was coaching them through and what showed up in their body physically. So if you have ongoing headaches, that's linked to a certain thought or a certain emotional state. If you're having stomach aches or issues with digestion, such as ulcers and that sort of stuff, then that's linked to a mental and emotional pattern. So all of these things are connected, like back pain, whatever is happening in your physical body, it started with something vibrational. So it started with something in your emotional or mental body, which means that by the time you get to the physical, that's really the manifestation of what was going on under the surface to begin with. So if you can get to what's happening under the surface, if you can get to the source, it means that you can get to your healing. Coming from coaching, I had the experiences of two losses. So my first loss was a pregnancy loss. I was 17 weeks and 4 days. I remember that number exactly. It happened on March 4th, 2016. It's interesting how these things are cemented in your mind. So that was my first pregnancy loss, and I was pregnant with a baby girl. And my healing process was going to support groups. That was helpful. I was doing a lot of writing and journaling. That was also incredibly helpful. I was working with a coach, also really helpful to just reframe my experience. And I would say that I did get to a point where I felt like I'm okay. Like I'm really okay with this. And I was so okay that I was actually leading support groups. So the support group that I had joined to help me with my own healing, I could start to share the techniques that I was using because I was a coach and because I had all of these wonderful tools from the coaching world. And I waited. I gave myself time, and I got to a point where I genuinely felt ready in my body. I got to a place of yes. And what I consider to be a place of yes is there wasn't any more fears around becoming pregnant again. There was this like openness, this excitement, this state of optimism about my next pregnancy. So in my body, I got to a place of yes. And so my husband and I decided to try again. We had another successful pregnancy. But what was interesting is that I would say the moment I knew that I was pregnant, we obviously were intentional about getting pregnant. So it was just like waiting to confirm. But sitting on the toilet seat waiting to see the results, I was anxious out of my mind. I eat gummy worms when I'm anxious. I don't anymore, which I'm so glad that I don't. But when I'm anxious, I eat like gummy worms and gummy bears, the sour ones. So I was like on the toilet seat eating those, just like waiting for the results. And that was an indication of the fear that now rose up inside of me as I like passed the threshold. I think you go through this process of being okay with being ready again. And I went through that process and I was good. I was balanced and at peace and optimism in that part of the process. But then when you pass the threshold of like preparing to become pregnant and now being pregnant, it's a whole new territory. You've entered a whole new world and it becomes scary. The reason why it becomes scary is that the fears now come up about losing the pregnancy, right? So I know that there are women, birth warriors in our community right now who they're pregnant and perhaps your day-to-day thoughts are, what if I lose this pregnancy? You might wake up in a sweat, worried that you've like slept on the wrong side or you've like, slept on your stomach. And I'm saying all of the things that I used to worry about or things that I've heard my clients talk about. Or that if there's something, something feels different in your body, it might be an indication that something is wrong with the baby. So the anxiety occurs daily. But I wish that I had done when the anxiety started and when the constant fear and worry started is I wish I had gotten the support that I needed throughout my pregnancy. So Throughout my pregnancy, I would say that I was stressed internally. A lot of it was like mental stress. So like, the worry that's going on in my mind of what I might do to lose this pregnancy. But also a lot of things were happening on the subconscious level. So I wasn't aware of it, not on the conscious level, but if I had known what I know now about how the nervous system works and just what happens from the emotions that we're experiencing and the chemicals and hormones that are firing in our body that actually brings the body out of balance and isn't healthy for a pregnancy. If I had known all of that, then I would have prioritized my mental and emotional health. And I was actually seeing a counselor, but that support, no, this person was a therapist. This person was a therapist that I got through my insurance. That level of support, I needed so much more because everything was happening in the mind or through engaging the mind. So, when you're working with a talk therapist, which this person was a talk therapist, everything like you're tapping into your mind and your memory to find solutions and to reframe the experiences that you're going through. And so, if I say, yeah, I remember telling this person, like, work is busy, I'm a little bit overwhelmed. And he suggested different things that I could use to manage the busyness in my life. Where we didn't go and what this person wasn't trained in, we didn't go under the surface. So it wasn't just that work was busy and I was stressed out because work was busy. Internally, I was stressed out. And so there was busyness around me, or I was creating busyness around me because of what was happening in my subconscious, in the subconscious level. So I was in fight and flight, meaning my system was always revved up, my system was always active. And when you're in fight and flight and constantly releasing cortisol and all of these unhealthy hormones and unhealthy neurochemicals, then that affects your body and that affects the baby. One of the things that my team is working on right now is to share more of the research on this because I think we know this intuitively that we should avoid stress. I don't think we know to the extent that stress impacts us and to the extent that stress impacts a pregnancy. So, some of the research that we're about to share is that for women and birthing people who have higher levels of stress, they're twice as likely to not have a successful pregnancy because of what the stress is doing to their body. So that's in terms of like for being on the fertility journey. Now, for those people who do become pregnant, how stress impacts the body is different because now it then impacts the baby, right? So babies who are born to mothers or birthing people with high levels of stress, they're more likely to have ADHD. They're more likely to have conditions later in life, such as Alzheimer's. They're more likely to be born with a low birth weight, and they're more likely to be born prematurely. And prematurity is one of the main causes for infant mortality. So there are all these like negative things that can result from stress. It's almost like we overlook stress in our society because I live in New York. And just before coming on this live, there's construction in the apartment beneath me. And there was just like all this like drilling and noise. And I could feel the tension in my body. I could feel what I was holding because of all the noise around me. So even if I don't lead a stressful life, which I try to be very intentional about not holding stress in my body, even if I don't do that, there's all these things around me that are causing me to experience stress, right? But just to demonstrate the impact of stress, after my maternity leave, going back into the office, having been out of the office for, what is it, like 14 weeks, 16 weeks, and going back into the office, my body could not sustain the stress. And it wasn't from work, it was just from being in the New York City transit. By the time I like got on the subway and like fought through the crowd of people and like had to either stand or sit based on how full the subway cart was. By the time, and like had to like then what I would consider escape. It always feels like you're fighting through crowds of people in New York City. By the time I did all of that for like an hour or an hour and a half during my commute, I was exhausted when I got to work. I was wiped out. And I remember thinking to myself, how did I go through years of this? How did I go through years of working like this and not noticing the impact that it had on my body? So when I got out of the environment and went back into it, that's when I realized the difference. But when I was in the environment for all those years, I didn't notice the toll that it was taking on my body. And I think on this birth warrior journey, we go through something very similar. We just adjust ourselves to whatever the need is, you know? So if we need to like focus on fertility and focus on the treatments and just like roughing and toughing through it, then we rise to that, right? If we need to focus on, you know, trying our best to keep this pregnancy safe and trying our best to do whatever is within our control. Sometimes it isn't within our control, but there's so much effort that we have to put in to try to become pregnant or try to have a full term pregnancy, and we don't realize that in the efforting there is so much stress that we're putting on our bodies. And again, the impact of stress, it's not good, but we don't realize it, but we've just adapted to this stressful life. So it's really important that when you're on the fertility journey, you also have the support that will help you to manage the stress. When you're on the pregnancy journey, you also have the support to help you to manage the stress on a day-to-day basis. There are a couple of questions that I have put together to like help you to assess when you're at the point of yes, right? So there's some people listening to this right now, you're already pregnant, and that's beautiful. The fact that you're listening to this now, it means that I'm going to share tools with you that will help you to minimize your stress during pregnancy and maintain a healthy emotional state while you're pregnant, because now you know that stressed or experiencing PTSD, which losing a pregnancy or losing an infant, it's definitely traumatic. So if the healing work hasn't been done, it means that you might be experiencing PTSD. So being stressed or experiencing PTSD during pregnancy, it has all of these negative outcomes. And being stressed or experiencing PTSD during fertility, it has all of these negative outcomes. And so I want to ensure that whether or not you decide that you are at the place of yes, if you are deciding to become pregnant, if you're deciding to focus on that part of the journey, because there are some people who are just focusing on healing right now. If you have decided that you want to focus on that part of the journey, I want to ensure that you know the things that you need to be mindful of. And if you need support in terms of working with me or whoever it is that you want to work with, you're getting the support that you need on your pregnancy journey. So let me take you through the things that you should keep in mind. All right, so I mentioned the place of yes. The place of yes is when you get to a point of optimism, a point of peace, and a point of ease in your body. What isn't the place of yes, or what's still the place of uncertainty, is if you are currently experiencing anxiety as you're even thinking about becoming pregnant. If you're currently experiencing fears or worries as you're thinking of becoming pregnant, it means that there's still some uncertainty. And having uncertainty alone, that's not a challenge. The challenge, or where the concern comes in, is the emotions that are associated with that. So when you're in a state of fear, anxiety, worry, there are neurochemicals that you're releasing in your body that's not helpful for you, and it's not supportive for a healthy pregnancy. So it isn't that you are in a state of like, I don't know if I should try now, I don't know if I should try later. It's like, with the mental and emotional stuff that's going on, what impact is that having on your body and potentially on the baby, right? So when you're in a place of uncertainty, it could be that there is some external influence that's impacting you. So it could be that you are worried that your partner wants to have a baby. Your partner might have expressed explicitly that they're ready to try again, right? So you might be feeling some pressure from your partner. But even if your partner has told you, like when you're ready, that's when we'll try, no pressure, no worry. Even if your partner has told you that, if you feel that you are preventing your partner from experiencing parenthood or preventing your partner from, expanding your family and having that joy, then that guilt that you might feel might pressure you into trying before you're ready emotionally. Other factors that might be at play are the community that you're in and your family. So the circles and the community that you're in, and also just like looking outside into the world at other women. So it could be friends that you went to college with, a sister in your family or a cousin in your family, and seeing that they are expanding their family, they're having the joy and the happiness that they want from parenthood, and you're not having that. So in that comparison, you might feel pressure to just like, go back in and try to have your baby. Family members might be asking, when is it time, not knowing that you have been trying, but it hasn't been successful. And so all of this pressure from the external world, which eventually becomes internal pressure, if you internalize it, if you decide that you have to take upon yourself all of their expectations and make, and have a baby, all of these pressures are going to be impacting you. And if it were the pressure alone and their comments alone or criticisms alone or expectations alone, then that would be fine. But what is it doing to your body emotionally, and what is it doing to your body mentally? So the question that I want you to ask yourself is, as you're making the decision to become pregnant, who else is in your head? Who else are you considering? And it isn't that you shouldn't be considering these people. Like if they're important to you, then yeah, they're a part of your decision making. Like your partner would be a part of your decision making. I'm actually just going to stop it at partner because I feel like everyone else just needs to wait. So if it's like, your own parents or other family members, in my mind, everyone else gets to wait. But if it's your partner and you, like, those are the two people who are important in making that decision. Everyone else is like secondary. Not that you won't feel the pressure from everyone else, but you and your partner, those are the two. You are at the core, you're at the center.
Hey, Birth Warrior, I hope you've been enjoying this episode. We continue the conversation within the Birth Warrior Facebook community. It's a safe and sacred space with others on their journey to healing, to strength, and resilience. I share practices that will help you to overcome the emotional wounds that are left after loss or infertility, and whenever you're ready, tools to help you to prepare for your next pregnancy. I also host a Facebook Live and Q&A within the community every Wednesday where I discuss the topics that are important to you. This birth warrior journey was not meant to be traveled alone, and you do not deserve to be suffering in silence. Check the show notes for the link to join our tribe. We're the Birth Warrior community on Facebook, and we are looking forward to seeing you.
Okay, so think of who else is in your mind. Try to put everyone else on pause. So if you're feeling pressured from other family members, give yourself the permission to just release yourself from the expectation that they have. I remember after my first pregnancy loss, a really close family member told me to get back on the horse. And this person said it from a place of love, but it's because this person's response to the tragedy or this person's response to difficulties is to keep fighting and to go back in there, to jump on the horse and keep going. And in my mind, I was like, I'm just going to sit here in the mud because I'm hurt, I'm wounded, and I know that I need to just care for myself. I need to care for the wounds that I'm feeling right now. I'm not ready to jump back on the horse. And so know that most people, they're coming from a place of how they think they would operate in your situation, and it doesn't mean that that's how you operate. Like, if you actually need more time, then give yourself more time. If you need more self care and self nurturing and to reconnect with yourself and your body, then that's really important in terms of preparing for pregnancy. So, if you're feeling all of that intuitively, give yourself the time to do that. So, really ask yourself, this question is important: who else is in your head? Who else are you considering as you're making this decision, right? Yeah, that's really important. And then, in terms of like the readiness of your body, your doctor can tell you if there are things going on that are going to make pregnancy or conception a challenge. And if there are things going on from a medical perspective, then hopefully your doctor has some treatment that can support you in doing that. But again, what's happening on the physical level, it is stemming from what's happening on an emotional and a mental level. And so I heard this quote the other day that you can't dry off while you're in the shower. And I thought, this is genius. So if there is something that is continually contributing to infertility or continually contributing to negative outcomes in pregnancy, then that thing has to be handled, that thing has to be worked through. I would say ideally before you try to become pregnant again or while you're trying to become pregnant. Stress is a major part of it. I won't be able to go into all of this today, but another part of it is what's happening in the emotional body. I've spoken on the emotional wounds that are left in the body after a loss, after going through something traumatic. So there is actually an imprint that's being made on the body when you're going through painful experiences that aren't resolved. Within our lifetime, we're going to go through so much pain. And the more things that we hold on to and that we keep in and that we don't process, it's the greater impact that it's having on different parts of our body. What scientific research has shown is that for women or anyone actually who's gone through an experience such as sexual assault, there is a pattern or an imprint that's in the brain. And if it's sexual assault, just sticking with that example, that same pattern or imprint is in the sexual organs, which is sort of crazy, right? So going back to Louise Hay had experienced sexual assault, sexual abuse when she was a child. And when she got older, she eventually developed, I think, cervical cancer or some kind of cancer regarding her sexual organs. And I remember watching an interview with her, and she said, as she was talking about this experience, she said, where else would I have put my cancer? Or where else in her body would she have kept that imbalance? Because that was the point of injury, right? That was the point of impact. And so, of course, if that's a point of impact, and of course, if that's the area where the trauma is that hasn't been resolved, that's where you're going to hold that energy, and that's where the imbalance is going to show up in your body. So everyone's story is different. Everyone, engages and works with energy in a different way. So it doesn't mean that if you've had any form of like sexual assault or sexual abuse, that you're automatically going to have challenges around the sexual organs or challenges with fertility and reproduction. It doesn't automatically mean that. But for people who have had a history of that, the scientific research is showing that it's more likely that there's imbalance in the sexual organs. And so I'm saying all of this to say that the experiences that we have, the really painful traumatic experiences that we have that we don't resolve, because we don't resolve them, there's an imprint that's left in our bodies that are impacting us. And I believe that the more things that we can heal, the more things that we can release from the body and get back to this state of balance and the state of wholeness, it's the better that we are preparing our bodies for a healthy pregnancy and a healthy fertility. I know that this is a lot. I know that I'm sharing a lot. I don't want to overwhelm you with a lot of stuff, but what's really important Let me lick my wounds, please. I have actually said that. Like, I just need time to lick my wounds. It's so important to just have time to care for yourself. Yeah, so I don't want to overwhelm you with everything that I'm saying, but I do want you to have enough information to understand that the fact that you have gone through infertility and are currently going through infertility, the fact that you have gone through pregnancy loss or infant loss, it means that there are wounds, emotional wounds that still need to be healed. And when you heal those wounds, one, they're not going to be triggered during pregnancy, but two, you're going to release the neurochemical hormones, all of the stuff that are being released in your body that are going to impact negatively or inhibit fertility and pregnancy. So it's really important to do that. I shared all the research about stress and infertility and stress and negative outcomes in pregnancy. So let me share now some things that you can use. So some things that are easily accessible are mindfulness and meditation. So yes, the healing journey is an ongoing one, and I'm so glad that you're continuing to heal. It's an ongoing one, like I mentioned before, when I thought I was healed through the pregnancy loss, I was in a whole new territory when I became pregnant again. And so there is more healing and more work that needed to be done. So I'm so glad that you're acknowledging that. Meditation and mindfulness is one of the tools that you can use. And the reason why meditation, or one of the reasons why meditation and mindfulness is so effective, is that when you're in the trauma response, when you're in the fight, fight, freeze, or the survival response, that's the word I was looking for. When you're in survival mode, it means that your nervous system might be revved up all the time. And that continual release of cortisol, again, it is just not healthy. It drains your system, it depletes your system, it focuses your energy in areas where that much energy shouldn't be going, because when you're in fight and flight, your body is preparing for a heightened experience. So your body is giving you this like rush of adrenaline and energy because it's preparing you to fight off a threat or to run away from a threat. What happens when we're in trauma or when we're in the survival mode on an ongoing basis is that your body's always in that state. You might not know because on the surface you look chill, you look calm, but internally there is just this activity, this ongoing busyness that's happening. How it might manifest is that you're really busy. So you're taking on a lot of projects and it's hard for you to experience like stillness and ease. No, meditation is helpful because imagine that you're an athlete. And I'm using this analogy because if you're in fight flight, there's a lot of like running that's happening in your system, a lot of motion. So imagine that you're an athlete and you're like running around a racetrack. At some point, when you get to pause and just be at ease and just take a breath, like I took a breath right there. And if someone were like tuning into my body, you would have noticed that my shoulder actually sank. Like I just felt my shoulder just release with that one deep breath. So when you take a breath, again, what's happening on the emotional level, it's happening on the physical level, right? So when you get to ease ease into your body with meditation, mindfulness, relaxation, you're bringing balance back to your body. And that's the body that you want to hold your baby in, right? That's the body that you want to, that's the state that you want your body to be in when you're on your fertility journey. This is the messed up part with fertility and stress. So when you're trying to become pregnant through fertility treatments, it causes stress. So you're in a state of stress on an ongoing basis, right? And then I'm sharing this with you that stress also inhibits fertility. It's sort of it messes with you because I'm trying hard to not be stressed. I'm trying hard to be calm. I'm trying hard to have ease and relaxation in my body. But being on the fertility treatment and, going through disappointment and, knowing that this failed and this didn't work, that causes stress. And so you really need a lot of support through the fertility journey to ensure that you're eliminating the stress. And the other thing that's going to be helpful, actually, let me just focus on this one example, then I'll go to the next one. So the first example is mindfulness, relaxation, meditation. The reason why that's helpful is it gives you a pause from the constant rush. And when you are basically, I don't want to say it's a disruption, but it is. So if you're like constantly running and there is a pause in that, then you're introducing something else to your body that's going to be good. Over time, your body is going to crave more of the relaxation, and you're going to be able to identify when you're going through stress, when you're going to the survival response, then you're going to notice that difference very clearly versus when you're calm, because you're going to practice the state of calm so often, right? So that's why meditation and mindfulness is important. And actually, one of our birth warriors had asked that I do that as one of our lives. And so next week, I'm going to make sure that that's the topic for our live. Okay, so yes, meditation, mindfulness, and there are apps that you can use for that. The app that I use is called Calm. Really love it. It has like guided meditations, it has music, it has these little stretches. What I do love is that it also has sounds. So sounds of like the ocean or like crickets or the forest or a stream, and I love those. So that's one, meditation, relaxation, mindfulness, to just introduce a sense of calm in your body. Now, the other thing that I was about to go into, and it's good that I paused because that's on a different level, is doing the emotional healing. Doing the emotional healing is also tied with being able to reframe what's happening. So there are things that lie within your subconscious that you don't have access to on a conscious level, but our subconscious drives, I think it's either 90% or 95% of our behavior. That means that what's happening in our mind, what we have conscious control over, it's the percentage is like 5 to 10% of control. But the subconscious mind is sort of like the iceberg, the big, massive iceberg under the surface that we don't have control over. So it means that it's really important to understand what are the stories that are lying in the subconscious. It's important to understand that because if the story is, I'm becoming older and I don't have enough time, I need to become pregnant right away, then there's a rush in your body that isn't good for you and your pregnancy journey. If the story is, I'm not good enough, my body is broken, I'm disappointing people, then that is also going to impact the decisions that you're making. It's going to impact how you show up in the world or how you don't show up. It's going to impact the support that you seek out, the questions that you ask, and it's going to impact your level of confidence in your next pregnancy and the thought process in your pregnancy, which then impact the chemicals that you're releasing in your pregnancy. So it's so important to learn what the stories are consciously so that you can release that, and so that you can then use your conscious mind to lead the behaviors that are happening on the conscious level. That part of it is what I do in the somatic therapy work that I do. So I have a coaching program called Coaching for Birth Warriors. I also have a program that focuses on emotional healing and support during the fertility journey. So one program is for you if you are currently pregnant and if you need support throughout your pregnancy, if you need to prepare for childbirth, if you need to release the trauma and the hurt and the story and all of that stuff, if you need to build resilience in your body and have these practices to build yourself up emotionally so that you're creating a positive, optimal environment for your pregnancy. That program is 6 months, and I meet with you every 2 weeks during those 6 months while you're on the pregnancy journey. You also have the option to add on doula support if that's something that you're interested in for doula support, I work either in person or virtually. I've supported clients as a virtual doula, and the experience was beautiful just the same. So that's one program that I have. The other program is for you if you really want to focus on healing from loss. And again, that is so important because the pain that you go through doesn't go away unless the work is done to ensure that it goes away. So you're still holding on to the imprint in your body. The more extreme cases, that imprint is actually inhibiting fertility, that imprint is actually causing challenges in your fertility and in your reproductive health. That's the more extreme case, and somatic therapy and doing the emotional healing can help to balance that. The other thing is healing the story and ensuring that you're not hurt, you're not still holding on to the hurt and the pain and the trauma from that experience. And if you're going on the fertility journey, which I mentioned, it causes stress, and we know that stress isn't helpful for the fertility journey. So the fertility journey in and of itself creates stress, and we know that stress then inhibits fertility. So it's like those two things that are always knocking against each other. So that second program is for you if you're on the fertility journey and need that support while you're going through treatments and while you're, you might be going through disappointment and, the expectations and the stress of the sacrifice that you're making, either financially or of your time, but definitely on your body, because it takes such a toll on your body. So it is absolutely my belief that if you're focused on becoming pregnant, you need to have the support. Like, you need to have the support that helps you to balance emotionally and mentally, because it plays such a huge part on the journey. So I'm going to extend an invitation to reach out to me to set up a call with me if you want us to just chat through a strategy that might work for you. So it could be that you might be a good fit for either of those programs, but it could also be that there might be other techniques, there might be other tools that you can use on your own. Even being in this community and having the support of other birth warriors is going to be helpful, because you get to learn from other people, you get to feel less alone. And I shared in one of the previous lives that when we're going through shame and guilt and fear and worry, learning the stories of other people helps to release all of those negative emotions. So just by being in this community, you are working on your healing, right? So I do definitely encourage you to reach out so that we can figure out, like, what is a good strategy for your reproductive health, what's a good strategy for your pregnancy journey, for your fertility journey. Help me to understand where you are right now so that I know exactly what support I can provide for you. I know that there's some in the community who they're seeking, the love that they want to welcome into their lives to then prepare for having a baby. And so if there are challenges around trust, if there are challenges around, finding the right partner and really healing the hurt from past relationships. Some of you have definitely shared that with me before. So if that's where you are, let's work on that so that you can be on track for the journey that you have ahead. And what I think is that this is like my absolute belief. So we often start on this journey of healing because we have a goal in mind. So whether it is to become pregnant again, to welcoming a support partner, to have a healthy pregnancy. But what is so beautiful is when you come in with that goal, and what you get on the other side of that is you are healed and you feel whole. Like, you feel stronger and more confident in your body. One of the birth warriors that I've worked with in the Coaching for Birth Warrior program, and I did an interview with her in episode 7. So definitely check out Katie's fertility journey and the coaching that I did with her through the coaching program while she was pregnant, and how that helped to like release the stuff that she was holding on to during her pregnancy. Katie talked about being on this journey, which her journey was definitely to become pregnant, was definitely to heal her infertility, But what she got on the other side of that was this beautiful connection with her body, sort of this reuniting with herself that she hadn't experienced in years. So that's the bonus, but that really is at the core, because when you get to that place of, self-love and this place of like wholeness, this place of meeting yourself again, then everything else in your life improves. Your relationship improves, your performance at work improves, your relationship with the people around you and the people in your family improves, because I think of it as like you being at the center of it all, and there are all of these different things that you're connected with, such as like a partner, when you become a parent, like all of these different things that are extending from you. And when you are at the center and you are feeling whole and confident and full and at peace, then everything else that you touch improves. So yeah, that's it. Like when you work on, your own healing and your own sense of wholeness, then everything else gets better. I promise you that everything else gets better. Okay, that's it for today. This was meant to be 30 minutes. We went on for almost an hour. I was feeling within myself that this one had to go deeper because this topic is such a big one. Again, just to recap, you can feel within your body when you get to that place of yes. And that place of yes is when you get to optimism about your pregnancy. It's when you get to, joy and, you're looking forward to it. It's like this place of peace within your body. If you're not there yet, but you still want to become pregnant, it means that you're going to need to have the support to work through the emotions and the mental stuff that comes up, because those things do, they impact pregnancy, they impact fertility. But it's sort of like if you're going for a jog outside in the middle of the winter and you decide that you're not going to wear any shoes and you're not wearing enough clothing. So the elements are definitely going to impact you. And then you might find that, you get frostbites or there's something more extreme that happens. So what I'm saying is, it doesn't mean that if you're not in the optimal emotional state, that you shouldn't be looking to become pregnant, but it does mean that if you are looking to become pregnant, have the things that are going to support you on that journey, which is ensuring that you're healing your body on a mental and emotional level. So the medical stuff, your doctor should be supporting you with that, but the emotional healing, the mental healing, that definitely has to be dealt with, because that directly impacts what's happening on the physical level. Some tools that you can use are meditation and mindfulness to just bring in a pause from the constant mental stuff that's going on, from the constant like rush of adrenaline and fear hormones and stress hormones that's going on. On a deeper level, what needs to happen is, something like somatic therapy that is helping you to heal the imprint that's in your body that is impacting you on such a deep level, because that's tapping into what's into your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind impacts, it's either 90 or 95% of what's happening in your body and what's happening in your mind and in your life on a conscious level. So it's so important. I wish I could go deeper, and I definitely will. There is something that I'm working on called Birth Warrior Bootcamp. It was meant to be in September, but I want to make sure that it's done well. And so my team and I are going to be doing this in early October. But it's going to be different days of just going through, understanding all of the support that you need to put together for the birth warrior journey. It's going to be so good, y'all. It's going to be so good. So obviously these lives are just like 30 minutes. Today it was like almost an hour. And so I wasn't able to go into as much as I wanted to go into, but I'm going to put together this series where you're really able to understand not only like high general level what happens in your body like after trauma, and like how you can respond to that so that you're in a positive mental and emotional state, But on another level, we're going to be looking at what happens in your specific life, like what's happening in your mind, what's happening in your emotions, so that you really can start taking action on your healing and on your pregnancy journey. All right, so let me make sure that I get to that. So it is like a mental block. Absolutely. You can still function physically, but oh my gosh, you're crumbling inside. You are so right. That's exactly what's happening. And the reason why you're still functioning physically is you've trained yourself to show up, right? You've trained yourself to still show up at work, to still show up for people, to still show up for your family. And while you're crumbling mentally and emotionally, eventually the body crumbles. So eventually you get to the state where you actually can't sustain yourself anymore. But eventually the body gets to the state of depletion where it cannot sustain itself anymore because it hasn't had the continuous support that it needs to build itself back up. I love that you mentioned that because it's so important. Another thing is, if you've noticed, people who are at work and stressed out, it's more likely that they become ill. So they start having the flu or they start calling out because there's something happening to their body. That's because the mental, emotional stuff was going on for too long and they were ignoring it for too long. So eventually the body starts to crumble. The body starts to not have the resources to support itself anymore because it's depleted, right? So it's so important that we're nurturing the body on all levels, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, on all levels. Okay, the sports mentality, I have lived it. Yeah, and you mentioned that you're an athlete, and so you know the sports mentality to just like keep going, keep rushing, keep pushing, and ignore the other stuff. All right, this was great. It was long. I shouldn't apologize for it being long because it means that you get more stuff, right? You get to go deeper into understanding all of this. I think it's a thing that women do, or people who live in this sort of female body, because we're often marginalized, we're often not seen and acknowledged. So we apologize when we feel as though we're taking up too much space. But I know that this was helpful, or I hope that it was helpful for you. I hope that it was helpful for your journey. And if you're finding that the tools that I'm sharing now are helpful, definitely share them with others. Invite other women and birthing people over to the community so that they can benefit from learning these things as well, because it's often ignored. Like my doctors have never asked me about stress. They've never asked me about the stress that I have in my life because what? They're not trained to treat stress. If a doctor treats you for depression or some mental related imbalance that's going on, they're going to give you likely pills to either inhibit something or encourage the production of something in your body. And they're not getting to the root cause of it because that's not what they're trained in. So I really want to encourage you to get the support that you need. And again, I invite you to book a call with me to learn more about the programs that I offer and to learn more about the different practices that I use to support birthing people on their pregnancy journey. I'm also a doula, which means that I'm seeing everything from start to end. And I know that the sense of confidence in your body during pregnancy, it goes all the way up to childbirth, and it continues the journey into parenthood as to how ready you feel and how confident you feel. And so know that, again, I mentioned, when you're focusing on your healing, it's going to impact all levels of your life. Okay, I'm going to end for now. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for hanging in there with me. I'm so glad that you were able to join. And for everyone else who's going to be watching the replay, thank you for watching. If this is helpful, share it, share it with other people. I also have a podcast called the Preparing for Pregnancy After Loss podcast. Lots of P's, preparing for pregnancy after loss. It's now available on iTunes. It's available on Spotify. If you go to my website, nataliefacey.com/podcast, you'll see the different platforms that it's available on. But within that podcast, there are different topics that I address as well if you'd like to go deeper. So go deeper and share it with others, because the more that we can all support each other on the pregnancy and fertility journey, it's like the better our world will be. I think that when we are all in a state of wholeness, then we get to show up in all of our spaces, whether it's our community and family, from that space, and that makes our world a better world. Okay, so I'm going to end now. I've been saying this for the past 5 minutes, but thank you again for joining. And I'm so appreciative that you're here. I'm so appreciative that you spent the time to listen to this. Definitely hit me up with any questions if you'd like to go deeper. I created this entire topic, or I addressed this entire topic, because it was one of the questions from birth warriors, either people that I'm working with or birth warriors in the community. I haven't met some of you yet, which is crazy. So definitely we should spend some time connecting and getting to know each other. So thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of the day. I'll see you next week, next Wednesday again at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also join this via Zoom, because I've set up a Zoom link. There are people who are like not fans of Facebook, because Facebook or social media in general can be triggering. And so I wanted to ensure that if that's a support that you need, you have the support that you need, which is avoiding social media if that's important, but still getting the resources and still getting the tools. All right. Bye, all. Have a wonderful rest of the day. I will see you in the community. If you're following me on social media, I'll see you on social media, and I'll see you next week for another Birth Warrior Wednesdays. All right. Bye. Mwah.
Well, there you have it, Birth Warriors. This was today's special episode, which really was a sneak peek into what happens inside of the private Birth Warrior community. It's really important that I am providing our members with what's important to them. So I am intentional in addressing the questions that members have, the challenges that they have as they're going on their Birth Warrior journey. So come and join us so that we can support you, so that we can love you up, so that we can give you the encouragement and help to strengthen you on the rest of your journey. I can tell you that the community has been growing a lot over the past few weeks, because there's so many people who are going through infertility and who are going through pregnancy loss and really need the support, because there's so much fear and anxiety that comes up as you're planning to try again. So the members in the community know they are sharing their stories with each other, they are supporting each other, they're sending hearts and other emojis and hugs and just sharing a lot of love among each other. There are members who are actively trying to conceive. There are members who are pregnant. There are members who are focusing on their healing. We even have members who are looking to attract the right partner so that they can then begin to plan their pregnancy journey. So wherever you are on this Birth Warrior journey, however you might identify, if you find that you want support, then I welcome you to join the Facebook community. We are the Birth Warrior community. Just search for the Birth Warrior community on Facebook. You can also find the link to the community in the show notes. Come on over so that we can support you. Come on over so that you never ever have to be alone as you're going through this Birth Warrior journey. All right, I will see you next time with the next episode of the Preparing for Pregnancy After Loss podcast. Thank you so much for spending this hour with me, and I look forward to connecting in another 2 weeks.